So this is where things I think get very interesting. So this comes in the form of what's called the Non-Aggression Pact. This is 1939, right before the outbreak of the Second World War. So, kind of out of the blue, the Soviet Union and Germany sign an agreement with each other. This hasn't happened since the Reinsurance Treaty under Otto von Bismarck, so this is really quite shocking to the rest of the world. But essentially, the Non Aggression Pact, which is very appropriately called, is a promise of neutrality between Germany and the Soviet Union for 10 years. Now, think about how odd this is. Germany is a fascist country, and the Soviet Union is a communist country. Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin could not be more different in ideology, but they're both totalitarian dictators and they both have their eyes on the same region. Take a look at this cartoon on the side, how both are stepping over Poland. They both have their own desire to take this region. And you can say, even though they are shaking hands and this agreement's taking place, they're both wielding weapons behind their backs to show they really do not trust each other at all. And here you can see this is an actual photo of the agreement taking place between the Soviet Union and Germany. So you might be thinking, why would Joseph Stalin do this? Russia had fought in a war against Germany previously. It's really out of frustration and anger over what the Western powers had done in the Munich Agreement. Don't forget, from the perspective of the Soviet Union, the Western powers basically gave Hitler Czechoslovakia. So to the Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia was really a buffer state between them and Germany. So they're going to want an assurance that Germany is not going to invade them through Poland. And of course, you're going to see that the Western world is going to make fun of this affair, portraying them in images like this. You can see this one is very much targeting Joseph Stalin's masculinity, portraying him as a bride or someone who is submissive to Adolf Hitler. So again, Stalin is going to reason that the Allies appeased Hitler, policy of appeasement, during this Munich crisis, and basically exposed the Soviet Union by giving Czechoslovakia to Germany. The Non-Aggression Pact is basically giving him reassurance that Germany is not going to attack, and it will give him a way into Poland. If you check out this primary source, you can kind of see what I mean here. This is such an interesting political document. Just look at the key things that are bolded. In the event of a territorial political reorganization of the Baltic states, just saying hypothetically, if something were to happen to these regions, the northern border would simultaneously be turned into spheres of interest of Germany and the USSR. In the event of territorial political reorganization of the districts making up the Polish Republic, just saying hypothetically, these would become spheres of influence of Germany and the USSR. So basically, it's arguing that, say, one of these sides were to theoretically kind of maybe take over these regions, they would become spheres of influence. That's the idea. And the most important part, it says this protocol will be held in strict secrecy by both sides. If you recall, the 14 points argued against secret treaties, and that's exactly what this is. It's basically saying that if either Germany or Russia were to attack Poland or the Baltic states, they'd be able to take over, and neither of the two countries would do anything about it. So Hitler's goal here is basically to ensure that he'll be able to later invade Poland without the USSR really getting involved, and the secret protocol really promises just that. It divides Eastern Europe into German and Soviet spheres of influence, and you'll see very quickly that this is exactly what it's going to become. From this image over here on the right, you can see the world is totally shocked about this. Of course, they really don't know the specifics of this plan because they're kept in secret, but the fact that Stalin and Hitler are coming to any kind of agreement is extremely interesting, especially considering you'll see during World War II that the Soviet Union joins on the side of the Allied powers and fight against Hitler, and there's a reason for that. So you might be thinking, if Hitler wants control of Poland, how is he going to justify that? His justification for taking control of Austria was there were ethnically German people there. Austria wanted to be absorbed. In the case of Czechoslovakia, there were people in the Sudetenland, so Czechoslovakia wanted to be absorbed. How do you come up with an excuse for Poland? Well, Hitler has his SS troops, his stormtroopers, disguise themselves as Polish officers and stage a fake invasion of Germany. This is the kind of political leader that Hitler is. So basically, they break into a radio station during this staged invasion, and the German, disguised as Polish officers, go on the radio and they emit this message to the homes of German people, basically saying that Poland is, very strong and Germany is weak, and that the Polish want to invade Germany. Kind of like some very far-fetched message. But Hitler is going to propagandize this and publicize this and use this as an excuse basically now to invade Poland. And you can see this is the radio station where this fake invasion originally took place. Interestingly, when asked about his motivation for doing this and his justification, he says, I shall give a propagandist reason for starting the war, no matter whether it is plausible or not. The victor will not be asked later on whether he told the truth or not. In a war, it is not the right that matters, but the victory. Essentially, Hitler says, yeah, even though this might not have been right, it's really the victor who writes the history, and therefore no one will care if what he did was wrong. This is the kind of mindset he really has going into World War II, and I think is so emblematic of the figure that he is. So, in terms of the invasion of Poland, after Hitler uses this fake invasion to justify the attack on Poland, he's thinking that the Allied powers are going to continue their policy of appeasement, but this is really the straw that breaks the camel's back. They really can't sit by anymore as he's invading Poland. He's essentially moving through now all of Eastern Europe, and they really have to act. You're seeing here these are tanks during the outbreak of this invasion of Poland, just to demonstrate how far technology has come in comparison to what you saw during World War I. During World War II, Hitler is going to employ what's called lightning warfare, or as he calls it, the Blitzkrieg. So, of course, Blitz meaning lightning and Krieg meaning warfare. This is utilizing new technology of the time, like tanks and planes. So the idea of this is that it's like rapid, very, very quick, very intense warfare that's meant to bring a very quick and swift victory for Germany. If you compare that to Germany's strategy in World War I, trench warfare, attrition warfare, which was very, very slow and brutal, this is supposed to be the total opposite. Hitler is really going to be studying World War I battle tactics and battle strategy to really create this blitzkrieg and change the strategy for World War II. Hitler's Air Force at the time is called his Luftwaffe. We'll be talking a lot about the air capabilities of Germany and the Allied powers going forward. And of course, you can see the Luftwaffe over here on the side in this picture. So, Britain and France issue warnings to Hitler on September 2nd, 1939, basically saying that if you do not stop, we will declare war on you and we will be bringing the world back to war. He does not listen. And by September 3rd, the next day, the Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, is forced to go on public radio and inform the British people that they were once again at war with Germany. Imagine the gravity of that statement and the horror the public must have felt, and imagine how incredibly stressed he must have felt to make that statement after he was the one who negotiated the Munich Agreement only a few months earlier. So, what do these bombings in Poland look like? They're called the Warsaw bombings. They're going to start in September of 1939 and just truly demonstrate the air capabilities of the Luftwaffe. So, by the end of the month, by the end of September, Germany is conducting its largest air raids to date. In a single day, they dropped 560 tons of highly explosive material and bombs down the city. And in that one day, they're able to destroy 85% of the city. That is how damaging and devastating the new technology really is during World War II. And it's just going to totally transform the way people really fight war in comparison to how it's been fought in the previous chapters in this class. You can see just the devastation, the carnage, the destruction of the bombs being dropped on Warsaw here. This is what's left of a city street. You can see almost all of the buildings are just totally incinerated from the bombs dropped from above. Same thing here, burning buildings, burning clock towers, burning castles. So the Polish are completely outmatched against Germany. Their strategy is they're trying to hold off as long as they can until the Allied powers are able to arrive, obviously, and assist them. But the problem is, think back to that non-aggression pact, Now the Soviet Union is going to attack from the opposite side, completely just rendering them totally defenseless to really stop this invasion. So the USSR is going to attack from the east, Germany attacks from the west, and in a matter of days, Poland is forced to surrender, and you're going to see Hitler's empire gets even bigger. These are the soldiers of the Red Army marching into Poland for the first time, and here you're seeing a girl crying over the body of her sister who has been struck by one of the planes of Hitler's Luftwaffe. This is what we're really left with in terms of Eastern Europe. I know this is a little bit confusing, but you can see that all of these states over here on the side, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, all of these things are going to be absorbed now by either the Soviet Union or Germany, leaving really none of them left. And this is really where we're going to stop for today. Next time we meet, we're going to talk about the battles of France and Britain and really talk about how the war is going to heat up from here.